Thank you for returning to the Exporter Sports Talk Show live on Raw Radio. I am your host, the NFL Exporter, and now it's time to get into some fantasy football. Once again, the call-in number to the show is 716-249-0552, or you can feel free to hit us up using email. That's TESS, Tom Edward Scissor Sam at rawradio1.com. And then you can also make sure to hit us up on Twitter. We'll certainly take questions during the show. I'm at NFLExporter. That's spelled NFLExporter. You can also submit your questions on Facebook. That's facebook.com NFLExporter. Now, our fantasy football all-stud team for the week. For those of you who are listening to the show for the first time or hearing the segment for the first time, every week we give you our fantasy studs, meaning the players who were the top at their respective position. Then we also give you our all-fantasy dud team, players who were certainly expected to put up big numbers this year and did not do that in their respective week of action. The quarterback was Andrew Luck of the Indianapolis Colts, led all fantasy football performers with 31 points. The running backs this week were Marshawn Lynch of the Seattle Seahawks with 24, Rashard Jennings, the running back for the New York Giants, with 23. Our wide receivers were Julio Jones of the Atlanta Falcons with 28, and then Jeremy Maclin of the Philadelphia Eagles and Antonio Brown of the Pittsburgh Steelers both had 21. Our top tight end was Martellus Bennett of the Chicago Bears. He had 2 touchdown catches that gave him 17 points. The top defense special teams was the Atlanta Falcons with 28. And our top kicker was Adam Vinatieri with 16 points. So if there is anyone out there that had that lineup in this week, had Andrew Luck, Marshawn Lynch, Rashard Jennings, Julio Jones, Jeremy Maclin and or Antonio Brown, Martellus Bennett, the Atlanta Falcons defense special team, and Adam Vinatieri as your kicker, you were the highest scoring team in fantasy football, period, this last week. Taking a look at our all dud team, man, this is shocking here. You got Aaron Rodgers with only 10 points. How about Eddie Lacy, Monty Ball, Frank Gore, all with 1 point? And Shady McCoy for the Philadelphia Eagles only had 2. How about at the wide receiver position, Keenan Allen for the San Diego Chargers, just 1 point. Larry Fitzgerald of the Arizona Cardinals, just 1 point. Randall Cobb and Andre Johnson, both only 2 points. How about Jason Witten continuing to struggle? He only had 4 points. How about the Panthers defense? -7 points. And Mason Crosby, the kicker for the Green Bay Packers, only 1. And so if you had those players, which again, I mean, I don't know who in the world starting the season off wouldn't have taken a lineup that gave you Aaron Rodgers, Eddie Lacy, Shady McCoy, Keenan Allen, Randall Cobb, Jason Witten, the Panthers defense, and Mason Crosby at kicker. If someone had that lineup this past week, you know what? You probably only put up about 30 points, which is absolutely ridiculous. Now let's go ahead and really look and see what's going on here in fantasy football. Now I must say this was a wacky week of football. We certainly had a lot of games that you anticipated to be blowouts, such as New England at home against the Raiders. New England only won that game 16-9. You certainly thought that the Saints were going to blow out Minnesota at home. They barely won that game. They won that game 20-9. And so certainly were some things going on this weekend that just you weren't accustomed to seeing. Was a very low-scoring week overall in fantasy football. Nonetheless, we are coming up on the 4th game of the season. And right now, there are a ton of players who have been MIA. Now, usually for myself, with it being a 13-game schedule, there are some leagues that go 14 games. The ones that go 13 games, you basically have your division winners with a first-round bye. 6 teams enter the playoffs. 4 teams battle that first week. It goes down from 6-4, 4-2, and then the winner wins the championship. But in some leagues where you only have 4 teams make the playoffs, you do go 14 weeks. So either way it goes for me, when I've got 13 or 14 games, I'm looking at 4 games being reasonable to where a player won't perform. Sometimes, especially when you got superstar players, look, sometimes they're going to have tons of coverage on them. A guy like Calvin Johnson, guys like Shady McCoy, Adrian Peterson, Jamal Charles. Defenses are making them the main focus of their offense. And your quarterbacks sometimes just come up against a rough defense. But certainly I would expect 9 out of 13 games or 10 out of 14 games. These guys have got to produce, and so I'm going to take a look at some players here, again, who have been very poor performers through the first 3 weeks, meaning that this is it. After this 4th game, if these guys don't perform again, I would expect for them to put up numbers the rest of the year. If not, we're going to have a lot of fantasy football players who are in danger of having average years. That means that owners wasted a lot of top picks on players who are not giving them the value that they deserve. I'm going to pull up just this past week alone and also take a look at a draft board and look at some of these players who, again, just have not been able to produce how we have accustomed to seeing. Now, obviously, Adrian Peterson, he's not on the football field. He's played 1 game this season, and that was only 7 points. So, I mean, for owners who drafted him, there's really nothing that you can do except leave him on your bench, hoping that he comes back at some point in the season. But right now, it does not look good for him at all. Some of the top running back waiver wire pickups since basically week 2, when they announced that he wasn't going to play. Niles Davis for the Kansas City Chiefs. You had Mark Ingram and Noshawn Moreno. They were still available. Both of those guys, unfortunately, got injured. They're going to be out for quite some time. Terrence West, the running back for the Cleveland Browns, he's done very well. His backup, Isaiah Crowell, has done very well. He's actually ranked 12th overall for all running backs and is tied for the league lead in rushing touchdowns with 3. And so those are some of the guys who have been able to come in and do some damage there. We're talking about Jamal Charles. Same thing, only gave you 1 week of action. Was hurt in week 2. He's going to probably be out another game or 2. And so hopefully you were able to pick up his backup, Niles Paul, in the preseason. We discussed when we did our running back rankings how handcuffing, picking your stud player's backup was key. Because if a guy went down, you didn't have to take a chance of missing out on him on the waiver wire. You can just insert him into your lineup. And Niles Davis, without question, just looks like he's one of the better backs in the NFL, not just one of the better backups. When we move a little bit further down the list, things have been rough for Matt Forte. Yes, he gave you double digits in his first week against Buffalo, but had a very tough matchup last week against San Francisco, only 4 points. Had another rough matchup on Monday night against the Jets, only 7 points. I will say for Forte, he continues to get the touches. I think once his matchups get a little better, his numbers will certainly come around. Eddie Lacy, another guy who most people spent a top 5 or 6 pick on overall. Huge expectations for him. He has done absolutely nothing this year. Only the most points that he scored in the game has been 4. And so, this guy right now is certainly on the hot seat. His future right now is up in the air. He was only a rookie last year, and we see that running back position a lot of times when these guys have great rookie campaigns. They go through a sophomore slump with defenses concentrating on them. And so we have to see how things work out there. But Eddie Lacy is on the hot seat. He's got a matchup against Chicago this week that seems to be possibly a little bit more in his favor. I know his head coach, Mike McCarthy, said he's got to step his game up. So I think there's still a little hope there for him. And really all of those running backs. Again, Adrian Peterson is going to be gone for however long. When he comes back, he's going to play motivated football. When Jamal Charles comes back, same thing. I wouldn't worry about him with all the touches and targets that he gets out there. Matt Forte, the same thing. I think Eddie Lacy is the guy where your biggest concerns lie right now. But again, it has only been 3 games. He has had some extremely tough matchups. Nonetheless, he's got to pull it together. Taking a look at another name, Aaron Rodgers, another guy that I wouldn't have too much concern over. Now, I will say this, like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers has lost a ton of weapons in the passing game. Like Tom Brady, who's another quarterback who's struggling. And we might as well go ahead and take a look at Rodgers and Brady at the same time. Look, once upon a time for Tom Brady, his weapons in the passing game were Wes Welker, healthy Rob Gronkowski, a healthy Aaron Hernandez. He also had two of his offensive linemen, Matt Light, as well as Logan Mankins. Both of those guys are gone. Gronkowski is still battling back from injury. Welker's no longer there. Hernandez is no longer there. So I certainly think you see Tom Brady struggling to throw the football right now as he's still getting acclimated. That system in New England is all about timing. And for whatever reason, Danny Amendola, Shane Vereen, Aaron Dobson, Kimbrell Tompkins, Brandon LaFell, all these guys they brought in are not doing much of anything. Julian Edelman seems to be the only player that Tom Brady is comfortable with. Similar situation going on in Green Bay. Once upon a time for Aaron Rodgers, it was Jordy Nelson, it was Randall Cobb, it was Greg Jennings, it was Donald Driver, it was Jermichael Finley, and that offensive line was a little bit better. Now you're just down to Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb. Yes, two very good wide receivers. You also have second-year player Jarrett Boykin, but defenses are playing these guys a lot different. When you have all those weapons in the passing game, certainly makes a lot of difference. And then also the Packers' offensive line is not shored up how it used to be a couple years ago. And so Aaron Rodgers has been under a ton of duress. Nonetheless, I think Rodgers is a good enough quarterback. Throughout the course of the season, they'll be able to make the necessary adjustments. But, man, he's got his work cut out. This is the NFL. Nothing is given. And when you are a star player, you are an elite player, you're certainly a person that defenses are going to target. Moving on down the list, Doug Martin, running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That offense as a whole looks horrible. I might as well throw in there his teammate Vincent Jackson. These guys have been able to do absolutely nothing. Martin, another guy who got injured in week 1, has not played since. He's a starter for Tampa Bay, so when he gets back in the lineup, that's where his value is. I think that they may do a little bit well now that Mike Glennon is going to be at quarterback with Josh McCown getting injured last week. Maybe he can give them a little bit of life, but Doug Martin has done nothing. A lot of people took him in the first 2 to 3 rounds in their draft. And then Vincent Jackson was a receiver going somewhere between the 4th and 5th round. A lot of people were banking on him being their number 1 wide receiver. Well, this guy has done nothing this year. If it wasn't for a touchdown that he scored last week in Atlanta, which was only from 15 yards out, this guy would have had no points. And so I've got worries there for those Tampa Bay Buccaneers. After the beatdown they took in Atlanta, I have no idea what that team's morale is. They're another team also who's got ravaged by a ton of injuries. Reggie Bush, I think his expectations are much lower. Drake Bell has become the feature back running the football there. Bush, they're using him more out of the backfield. Bell gets the goal line carries, and so I think that Reggie Bush right now is still a good flex play, but he has not put out the production that we expected from him. If it wasn't for him getting in the end zone last week, his season would have been a complete waste. I'm also looking at Keenan Allen. We talked about him for the San Diego Chargers. Just 1 point last week playing the Buffalo Bills. Certainly unacceptable there. Again, he's fighting a growing injury, and so, a hamstring injury. So you're certainly hoping that he can turn the corner at some time. How about Frank Gore out in San Francisco? Look, this guy just had 6 carries last week out in Arizona. I certainly think there's light for Gore, though I think at some point the 49ers will come back to their senses, get back to the ground game. And so I think Frank Gore is going to be okay. But through the first 3 games, he's certainly underachieving. And then how about a couple wide receivers? Andre Johnson for the Houston Texans and Larry Fitzgerald for the Arizona Cardinals. Both of those guys have done nothing this season at all. I think that they both still have a little upside because of who they are. But again, they may just be the victim of circumstances. They're the main players the defenses are honing in on there and just unable to produce. A couple other players I wanted to mention, Trent Richardson for the Indianapolis Colts. He continues to underachieve, hasn't found the end zone yet this year. And Percy Harvin, if it wasn't for him scoring a touchdown last week in San Diego, which he really stepped out of bounds, it wasn't a touchdown, he would have had pretty much been fantasy football irrelevant this year. And so he's a guy, I think he'll be fine. He's going to continue to get the touches out for the Seattle Seahawks. Quite sure he'll find his groove, but Russell Wilson is spreading the football out a whole lot more than anticipated. The last guy on this list who it doesn't look like there's any hope for whatsoever is Chris Johnson, running back for the New York Jets. Another below average game yesterday. He's finding himself in a timeshare with Chris Ivory. Many of us thought he was going to be the featured back there in New York, but Chris Ivory is running a lot harder. And Chris Johnson, if it wasn't for him getting a receiving touchdown in week 1 against Oakland, this guy pretty much would have no points at all. So huge disappointment there. Let's take a quick commercial break. Once again, I'm the NFL Exporter. You're tuned in to the Exporter Sports Talk Show on Raw Radio. When we come back, we'll start looking at our Week 4 matchups for the NFL.